Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelove, and this is Speedplay France and Stellaris number 17. We left off ready to begin the first Great Purge. I've done the math, and I forget what the exact numbers were, but it was something like 10 additional science is wasted, or is added to our tech costs per tech point that the technology will cost per pop. And also something like 300 tech points per additional, or per tech cost per planet. So every world that we, I guess basically abandon, will lower our tech cost per tech point per tech price by 300. Every pop that we kill will lower it by 10 by that same amount. So essentially, if a pop is producing less than 10 science, like most of these are, then they can be freely purged, and it will do nothing but increase the amount of technology we get. So all of these pops that we're killing off right now, even the ones working on science, if they make less than 10 science, they basically may as well be making no science whatsoever. Now, we aren't killing off everybody everywhere who isn't producing 10 science. For one, we still have a massive fleet we need to maintain. For two, that would get rid of our mineral income as well. So our energy income and our mineral income would be just destroyed. Also, our borders are only so big because of how many, big across the galaxy, because of how many people we actually have in our empire. So if we were to go ahead and just abandon all of that, then we would lose out on quite a bit of just resources and territory. So we're being more conservative with it. Anyone who's terribly unhappy in our government, we're just going to purge them, and they will hopefully be replaced by more happy peoples. That's really the main goal of that. Hopefully we'll be able to achieve it decently well. We're also purging some human populations that are terribly unhappy. Some of them are migrating. We might purge them or let them go. Really though, we are really just cleaning up our empire. We have something like 1,300 population right now, and that is just making our technology ridiculously expensive. Hopefully we can go ahead and purge that down to a more reasonable level. And really that's going to mean everyone who's terribly unhappy. Once we get rid of all of the terribly unhappy people, we're only going to be left with the people who are more or less happy and willing to work within our system. And that means less likelihood of revolt, less likelihood of really tons of detrimental things, and our science will go faster in the process. It's not going to be an empire-wide sort of thing, simply because I'm not sure just what sort of impact doing even what we're doing right now is going to have on our energy budget. And that's really the most important thing. While our fleet is probably big enough to take on really the entire remaining galaxy at once, it's not going to be able to do that if we can't afford to maintain it in the field. We also do start modifying humanity, or the French, in order to get them adaptable to different worlds, and I believe at some point either in the future or already we set our migration policy for primary pop only, and we're going to, or already have set our breeding policy to not slaves, basically. So slaves won't be able to breed. Slaves are going to mainly be just our unhappy people, or people who would be too unhappy while experiencing the joys of freedom, or I guess the abhorration that is freedom to them. So yeah, there we go. 1,303 pops. We're going ahead and just getting rid of all these people. I believe it'll take effect at the end of the month, and there it goes. Our energy income has dropped significantly, and we dropped something like 250 pops just in the right or outer portion of our empire. Now, we did lose quite a bit of territories, and that does mean that we're going to have to reform a couple new sectors just out of individual worlds, which is a little unfortunate, although nothing too terrible, really. We will probably have to make up for that by taking in more peoples and things. It looks as though we now have Neo the French, which just kind of goes to signify that I should have named the species French instead of the French. From where we tried to make them desert or Arctic peoples on a continental world. The hope was that they would just move themselves to desert or Arctic worlds. I forget which one we set those people up to, but instead they made Neo the French, and that'll probably be a problem. I'm not entirely sure how. Okay, there we go. We did set slave procreation to not whatsoever, so hopefully only free peoples will be able to breed throughout our empire, hopefully making it a more happy empire. Everyone who's unhappy is enslaved, and everyone who is too unhappy, even of the slaves, is dead in that portion. So hopefully happier people will reproduce, making a more happy empire in the long term. That's the main goal of that. Technology still costs something like 78,000 points, which is quite a bit. However, at this point, I'm not terribly comfortable continuing the purge of all of those peoples and portions of our empire until we manage to strike out and really, what's the best word? I guess just get rid of all of our remaining oppositional empires. So we're going to have to conquer the universe before we're able to really get the empire where we want it to be. With our fleet sitting, we had been at something like plus 150 energy. Now we're only at plus 100. So we are kind of losing out on our just dominance of things industrial and whatnot. And you'll notice tons of people are still enslaved. They get a malice for us freeing them, which I guess is there to just prevent us from freeing everybody and having a much more productive empire all of a sudden. It kind of has the weird backlash that it makes more sense to keep people enslaved for their happiness. We do go ahead and declare war. We are only taking one of their worlds and forcing them to abandon the rest. This is a slightly dangerous strategy in the sense that since there are so many empires left in existence, by making them just abandon worlds, we might be opening those worlds up to the colonization of other species, which means we might have to cleanse portions of the galaxy time and time again as other empires go and settle the areas. It's a risk we're going to have to take, though, since we can make them abandon more worlds than we would have been able to conquer. We're also starting to delegate control over the 10 planets we had previously been directly controlling, and giving some of those over to our AI, what are they called? Sectors. Just because the micromanagement is a little too much for me personally. And I don't actually believe we're going to have to build a fleet up in the near future to such a significant degree that it would really be worthwhile to deal with all the micromanaging. At any rate, we also begin building some robotic armies, since we did have a little bit of an issue with just enemy ships. We also managed to get a 6,000 fleet strength powerful AI fleet, or not AI fleet, Fallen Empire fleet. So that is now part of our control. That is part of our empire. And they have the super interstellar space flight that just has a certain range, so we can now go anywhere in the galaxy without using wormholes with that one fleet. The rest of our empire is still going to be using wormholes, but now we have that one fleet to explore around with, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Other than that, though, we are just in these wars. It's the war against one empire and its subject state. We have fleets, as you can see, on many of their systems, and we're upgrading our new robotic armies so that we can set them forth and hopefully go ahead, merge them together, and use them to just attack all of their various worlds. The goal, just mainly, as always in any war, we're going to just try to dominate them. We did lose that one unfortunate robotic army force, and they are trying to retake one of their worlds, which is also unfortunate. We did defeat their attacks, so that's good. But yeah, really, it's just the same cat and mouse sort of thing. We are the cat, and we are now several cats waiting for them to mouse around a bit and try to fight back in whatever way they deem themselves able to do so. Other than that, we're just going to be invading their worlds until they finally say uncle and are willing to basically abandon all of those worlds, doing a more or less backdoor genocide of themselves. Or I guess we're doing it. I'm not really sure who the blame lies on for the actual process of those genocides, since most of those worlds are under their direct control. At any rate, though, I guess that doesn't matter all that much. We do go ahead and get the war score up to 100%. And there we go, they've abandoned most of those worlds. We took their former capital, that is now ours. We can hopefully build some wormhole stations there, enslave everybody. We would purge them, except, well, they're new into the empire, so who's to say if they're going to get happier later on. We also do have a robot there, so that is nice. And we have been dealing with a bit of an energy deficit, so really any worlds that give us energy are welcome. And the population that we got from their capital world is going to go ahead and affect our borders, making them slightly larger. Also, since we've been modifying the French so much, there are 3 the Frenches and 1 Neo the French. So our primary species is now 4 species, and I'm not entirely sure if species named the French are treated as a primary species, or are treated as other species and thus hated by our primary species. It may be the case that the only French, or the only the French, who our people will like will be the original continental slow-breeding French. I guess it'll be determined by whether or not the new forms of French that we have created end up going to other worlds, thus proving that they are a primary species. Also, Neo the French are acting up, which is, I mean, to be expected somewhat. Their world is a bit of a problem zone. We're just going to keep killing off the unhappy ones and treat them like any other world in the Empire. Hopefully that will work decently well. We've also discovered the Zaxoid civilization. We're going to go ahead and just drop an army on them. We might end up just making them extinct if they are too unhappy with us. A lot of French people we're going to have to purge since they're just simply too unhappy to exist. And yeah, that's a bit of an unfortunate thing to have to do, but, you know, our empire will be better for it. It kind of brings up a weird ethical dilemma, or just a weird ethical presumption behind Stellaris, that, I guess, sometimes it is literally the most beneficial thing to do to genocide populations, but whatever. So we had 1,303 population, then we were down to 1,046, roughly 250 lost. We are now 11% of the population of our own empire. However, there are several other subgroups of the French. We are the 5th most populous species in the universe, the French is being different species now, hopefully still primary. And we're back up to 1127 population, so we have gained 70 since we purged. At any rate, thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. We will be back again, hopefully tomorrow, with more.